22nd.
January 22nd, Stallings Town Council meeting. We start with an invocation, Stephen.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for letting us come here tonight and just be servants of the town and do the business of the town and hopefully make great decisions and with the wisdom that you give us. Hope that you look out over our staff, people of Stallings, and keep us safe. And with these things, I pray in your Son's holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance. All righty. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with a public comment. Linda, would you come to the podium and introduce yourself? And you've got 15 minutes or so.
Oh, yay. Pull out my other speech. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and introduce myself. My name is Linda Robinson, and I'm running for school board at large. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm married to Tommy Robinson. He is a native of Union County. We moved here as a family. We have 3 adult children now and 2 grandchildren. We moved here in 2002. My husband is retired military. He was in the Air Force for 34 years. We are both active in the American Legion in Unionville and also the VFW in Indian Trail. I am a retired teacher. I taught for 33 years in the North Carolina Public Schools. I taught anything from 6th grade through 12th grade math. I taught at-risk pregnant teens all the way up through high school honors students. My last job was at Porter Ridge High School, which I helped open as math department chair in 2005. I also served as testing coordinator there right before I retired for a few years. For my education, I received a BS in math. I have my national board certification, which I earned in 2000, renewed that in 2010. I also have my master's in education, focusing on curriculum instruction, and I earned that in 2006. I'm running for school board to be the voice of students, parents, and teachers. With my education and my experience, I have a more informed perspective than most. Considering, to the best of my knowledge, there are no public school teachers on the board at this time. I envision a unified group of students, parents, teachers, staff, and board members working together to meet the needs of our students. I'm committed to opening communication and dialogue among us all. The school board is making decisions to help the students and the teachers teaching them. I cannot think of a better resource than someone who has been in the classroom, who has helped train and guide other teachers who are in the classroom, who has firsthand knowledge about what it's like day after day to be in the classroom for the 33 years that I was. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Linda Robinson, and I'm running for school board at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Any other public comments that didn't sign up that would like to speak tonight? Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right, agenda approval. Alex, you want to add one thing to it? Or you want me to?
Yeah, if you could do it, that'd be great.
I would like to add discussion and action on updating our budget meeting schedule. Discuss it and then perhaps hopefully vote on a change.
What are you going to make that, 4A?
2A,
2A.
just get it over with.
All right.
Move to approve the agenda as presented, except with the addition of item 2A, adjustments to budget meetings.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Item 2A. Next Monday, we have the next the budget meeting scheduled. The proposal is to change that to the February 5th. I think that's the next Monday, but let me get it up, be sure.
It is, yeah.
It is, so let's to bump it to the following Monday. That'll give the staff and Marcia in particular time to go not only what we asked them to look at for us tonight in our budget meeting in the last couple hours, but also Marcia's number one and top most priority is the audit. That'll give her time to do both and focus as she needs to on that audit and get it done. So that's the proposals, that we take that into consideration and then move the next meeting from next Monday to the following Monday, February 5th, same time, same place. Yes, 4 o'clock.
What's that? I would prefer a 5, but, because,
5?
I mean, that,
We do 4:30? I don't want to, we got lucky tonight and ended at 6:30. Filled it full.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't get off work till 5, so I have to leave either way.
The reason we did 4 tonight was because we had a 7 o'clock tonight, so, right.
Good point. We
So I would
don't have
just
a
do it at
7, on the
5.
5th, we do not have a 7 o'clock, so we could do it at 5. Go a little bit later.
I would prefer that, just simply so I don't have to leave work again.
So is there a motion?
Well, any discussion? Any other discussion? If not, I'll make a motion to move the budget meeting that was once scheduled for next Monday to February 5th from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock too.
5 o'clock on the 5th?
5 o'clock on the 5th.
Alex, before we move forward, that is good with you and staff?
Yes, sir. We can make it work.
All right.
No problem.
All right, the motion on the floor. Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Moving it to the 5th. Thank you all. Item 3, TOD overlay consultant. Max, would you like to make some introductions and
Thank you, Council. As you know, we received a grant from the CRTPO to incorporate a TOD overlay, update our small area plan, and our future land use plan for the area around the Silver Line. So, staff, we selected Bolton and Mink as our consultant, and Dylan McKnight's here to help kick off the study. And I'm here for any questions as well you have, if you have any. So, thank you.
Pleasure meeting everyone. Keep it short and sweet because I know y'all have had a day. My name's Dylan McKnight. I'm from Bolton and Mink. We also have with us Kittleson Associates on the team, but we provide, let's see if I can, there you go. We provide a range of services that are useful for this kind of study, and you're covered there: urban design, transit planning, placemaking, visioning, you know, the whole kit and caboodle. And just in looking at what has been done in the town over recent years, there's some good planning in place already. Primarily, we're updating a lot of that stuff because the Silver Line wasn't considered in those plans. So we're updating and improving. And things move fast, things grow fast. So these days, you know, 5 years passes, and sometimes your plans are a little bit, you know, in need of update. So we were asked to integrate, as I said, the Silver Line into the comprehensive land use plan, reimagine the small area plan that was done for the expressway around that station area to include the Silver Line and Atrium Hospital, which weren't included in the plan previously, and to draft a transit-oriented overlay ordinance for the station area to be incorporated by the town after the plan's done. So that would help coordinate development to consider the Silver Line and principles or, around transit-oriented development. So this is the general schedule. We are working with town staff to massage it along the way, as we do with every project, but you can see we've planned in about 4 touch points with council to keep y'all updated along the way. And we're developing what you might call a stakeholder group, or not necessarily a steering committee, but something in between that we hope might include a couple of council members if they're interested and have time. That will help keep everyone plugged in outside of these 4 touch points. This is generally the study area. It's about 3/4 of a mile outside of the station location. A little bit bigger than the walkable area, but, you know, we feel like it's better to kind of consider a little bit more outside of your context. So, yes, ma'am. Let's see. Yeah, I can scroll up and down too. So, you know, we're off the screen down to the lower left, but it generally goes up to the creek over here, and then down about to the rail, to the freight rail, CSX freight rail tracks here. And then this is Indian Trail boundary kind of creeping up in here. So it goes out that way too.
What's the dashed circle?
That's the edge of the study area.
How was that determined? It looks like it came from the Silverline folks.
No, generally about a half mile around a station is considered transit-oriented development study area, because that's sort of the walkable area that people are willing to. But what we're seeing in a lot of transit station areas that are developing, originally that's sort of the boundary that folks think that transit-oriented development is going to reach to, but it oftentimes goes further than that, to like 0.75 miles. So it's really sort of market driven. You see it a lot up in the south end area of Charlotte because of how successful that transit-oriented district is. But developers are building something a mile away from a station and then tying their sort of name and amenities to that station. So the influence, the sort of area of influence, is a little bit bigger than a half mile.
Look forward to seeing how all this comes together with that big old expressway, 74 in a way, of all the stuff on the northern side. Baffles me how that will be walkable, but you're the expert. I can't wait to see how you figure it out.
You brought up a really great point, and that's one of the first, barriers that we see is, and Stallings Road to an extent, although a lot of your previous planning says that Stallings Road should have multi-use paths on both sides and change in character from what it is today. So, yeah, that is going to be something that needs to be coordinated into the future, because, you can see the purple line. So the silver line is planned to be elevated as it goes over Stallings Road, just like the freeway is. So you're going to have sort of 2 walls for people to get across on either side. But, maybe with lighting underneath the bridge and paying attention to pedestrian crossings, making them generous, those sort of challenges can be overcome. The distance to walk is not really that far. It's sort of, do you feel safe? Do you have a destination on the other side? So whether you put safe crossings there or not, when the station comes in, people are going to be crossing. It's just going to happen. So better to plan ahead. But this community has a history of doing that, especially in recent years. I've been really impressed with the plans that I've seen so far. And I know, there was kind of presumably done by one firm all at a similar period of time, so there's a little bit of an advantage to that, that you might have had people on board and staff or wherever to say, hey, we need to do this. And it doesn't always happen that way, but still, the forward thinking and the best practices are there. And even in the economic development strategy, I was sort of like, we should just take all of these principles and just slide them forward into the goals for this document because, there's not a whole lot of rethinking that needs to be done. There's a lot of great foundation work there.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
yep. Thank y'all.
Any other questions?
Looks like the timeline's 12 months.
Yeah, we want to try to do it slimmer than that, but it all depends on response times and things like that. Fast as.
I have a more practical question, given that and thank you, Dylan, that was really helpful, and might be for you or Max, I don't know who. Given that the Silver Line is not funded, the study stops at Central Piedmont, this would be an additional leg that requires some sort of local funding, which hasn't been identified. Some would say it's a generation away. What happens on the ground after this plan is adopted with landowners who are redeveloping their property? What do we tell them now if I'm just going to pick on Big Tex, the big trailer retail shop there on the freeway that goes right where the station is? What do you tell him, her, whoever owns the property about a redevelopment of the site? Is it a requirement that we're going to put in something that says you must reserve right away for this, or a recommendation that we would encourage you to? What's the language that you see people using for something that's that far out?
Yeah, so we'll need to figure out those details in that draft ordinance, right?
Okay.
But the Charlotte TOD ordinance says for 18 months, you have to reserve this property. But after that, they can't legally require you to do so. So there's one option there to give some protection that way. But really, the way that they're doing it just northwest of here is telling folks, this is the alignment that's planned. The timeline is unknown, but what you've drawn on your concept plan would be a direct impact by the infrastructure. And so I guess it's up to the property owner, developer, if they can develop by right, then they can develop by right, and they may risk in 15 years that their property is acquired and they'll be paid fair market value for it. Now, I don't work for CATS. I did work for CATS for 2 years, but I don't want to speak for them.
Sure.
So,
Okay, so information, keep it in mind as you develop, or I would also say you might want to orient your site toward this so you'll reap the benefits. In fact, the highest and best use is now probably different than it might have been, that kind of thing. Even though it is way out in the future.
You're right on point. Like putting a parking lot where the right-of-way for the Silver Line might be, and you're building outside of that right-of-way would protect the building.
Got it.
The parking lot's easy to be sort of, CATS could pay you for that and put your parking spaces somewhere else. But a building is massive,
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and
I have one more question.
Oh, sorry, I had one last thing. I don't know if we discussed it, but we were thinking about possible incentives for preserving the alignment for the Silver Line. For example, like a density bonus, but we haven't we're so early in the plan that we would definitely bring that to council to see if that's something that you guys also would agree upon as well.
Okay.
So the best case scenario is this works out, gets funded, built, we all are around to see it and ride that first time. Maybe a lot of wishful thinking, but the next case is it ends in Matthews, right off that map, I think, or right at the edge of it. What would we want to protect or preserve or gear our, what would we do to change to maximize that option, should that happen? I mean, it's not in Stallings, but there's some development possibilities along the border there that might, in fact, is that the, Max, is that the property for the Hendrick project?
Correct, yeah.
All right. Well, that would be excellent for them too. What would we do, anything, or just?
So I mean, off the cuff, I would say work to connect people intelligently to the end station, because that's gonna be a park and ride, a massive park and ride station planned.
Yeah.
So there's the Carolina Thread Trail. I mean, you know, new roadways are really difficult to build through this area, but getting people from the area intelligently to that station location would be a priority through a variety of modes. So I worked on a plan when I was there to build a rail trail beside the Silver Line, and that's still part of the team's plan, is to get a trail funded with the transit project, which I think is, I mean, I don't know any agency that's done that across the country. So if they're able to do that, then you have a regional trail along with the Carolina Thread Trail, which goes down Monroe Road, and then over here on the other side near Stevens Mill. So you have 3 essentially regional trails, you know, that could help get people safely up to the station area. But just off the cuff, those are some of the things. And then from a development standpoint, so if you have this TOD overlay ordinance and then the transit never comes, along the way you have still guided development to the best practices that you could. So, because that's sort of the highest, like, TOD codes and ordinances are sort of the best, you know, to create walkability and compact walkable blocks and mixed-use development, which this area sort of begs.
I think that one of the things when they built the expressway that is underutilized and not really thought of as a serious thoroughfare is Marie Garris going underneath the expressway there. It's not used much, but it probably will be a lot in the future.
Yeah, we were talking before the meeting that this town and Matthews and, you know, other situations are like this, especially in the northern towns. You're constrained on the amount of options you have to move north-south or southeast, northwest, if you will. So it puts so much pressure on those 2 corridors, hence all the congestion. You don't have a supporting network that parallels them. So in lieu of being able to build those, you have to sort of help people get around in other ways.
All right, go ahead.
In your experience, do more people are going to take the Silver Line, are they going to drive or walk from a neighborhood?
Depends on how you plan the area around it. If you make it walkable and encourage mixed-use residential development, meaning, you know, maybe 3 or 4 story or 5 or 6 story, whatever the community is comfortable with, residential development with retail either in the same building or horizontally mixed use with it. You create a place like that in the area around where the station will be, then people will be walking, because it's designed for that. One of the things that we saw in South End was the traffic counts on South Tryon and South Boulevard in and around the station area didn't explode like the population did. So that makes you wonder, people must not be taking their car for every trip, like, every resident doesn't mean this many more trips. People are deciding to walk and take other modes. So it depends on how you plan and design, but if it were me, I would put my money on, creating a walkable area here, because that's what the past planning efforts say. So that's been vetted in a variety of ways throughout the years. So why kind of flip that and go, okay, we're just gonna make a park and ride area here, which would just further reinforce the auto-dominated situation out there.
Is your plan gonna show a park and ride lot there? I remember when Andy and Jason came and spent time with us on the Silver Line, we were disappointed a little bit about their answer to what will this look like, and it felt more like a parking garage-centric development. You just said something two things I didn't know tonight. I didn't know that the future elevation of the light rail line follows the elevation of the road up in the air. I did not know that. I don't know how I missed that. I thought it was grade level alongside the right-of-way. But are you thinking in this planning process of a park and ride lot here, or is this a walkable station area with a park and ride lot at the university or the college?
So the current plans from CATS are a deck that would be wrapped with some sort of development, presumably retail ground floor and residential wrap. So again, being early in the process here, my guess would be that you then use that as a constant, and then you design development around that, so that there may be other parking areas or deck that support other development, but they back up to one another, so you don't really see any of that. All you see is 3-story apartments or 4-story apartments, or, nowadays there's not a whole lot of demand for office. If there were, you would probably see office development planned in there too, but right now they can't justify a new office.
Thank you.
That answer your question. Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
No, sir.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, council.
Yeah, and feel free to send Max questions, and we'll answer as quickly as possible, and look forward to engaging more over the course of the process. Thanks for the time. And
Thanks for
the
coming out.
questions.
Hey, was that an action item, though, to see how Matthews is preserving that CPCC lane? I didn't know if that's something that we want to make sure that they are doing or are planning to do.
No? You mean what I asked?
Yeah.
No, what I asked is what would we do on that border differently than what we already are doing? So
Okay.
It wasn't really an action item, it was just a question.
Okay.
Might be wise to stay in touch with Jay and others in Matthews to find, because last I heard was they were working with Hendrick, because Hendrick was thinking about reposition. They had a really, really old plan that was approved. Given the change in times, they wanted to update it, so last I heard, they were working with the town on the best strategy to rethink that land, because the last plan was like, sort of like the old-fashioned office part.
What, just see if they are planning to take and hold that.
I can reach out to them.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next up, Chief Franks, Police Department Staffing Analysis.
Evening, council. I'm here tonight to talk about the staffing analysis we did. So tonight we'll talk about the background and the historic data, the staffing models that I used, and then some next steps. So the first question, how did we get here? In 2019, before starting here, I'd met with my predecessor, Chief Plyler, and he had said he had addressed staffing with, at the moment, that time, the council, and he had told me that the department needed to expand by 4 officers. So I just kind of tucked that in my back pocket, and in 2020, I started here. And one of the first things I did was just a listening campaign with the officers, riding in the car with them. A lot of them said, "Oh, we're short-staffed, we're short-staffed." I said, "Well, tell me how you're short-staffed." And well, it just feels like we're short-staffed. And I'm like, so really just kind of metaphorically short. And the manager and I talked about it, having talked to Chief Plyler. And then in the council retreat in February, we talked about recruitment and retention, and I recall being asked, if you could, how many officers would you need? And I said, my years of experience says we probably need about 5. And then after that retreat, I was tasked, and the manager and I were tasked to do a staffing analysis. So that's what we did. Just a little bit more data here. This graph here shows population increase, calls for service, and then the number of officers. So you can see in 2004, when the police department started, we had 16 officers, averaged about 5,000 calls a year. Those are reactive calls only. That's not proactive police work. That's just calls for service. And you can see we did it, the way it worked out, we did it in 5-year increments. As the town grows, population grows. I think from 2009 to 22, population increased 21% and call volume increased 38%. You can see the call volume continues to go up as population goes up. 2019, I think it was a little over 13,000 calls. COVID hits, call volume goes down. Now as COVID has passed, it's starting to tick back up again. But in 2024, we're sitting at 25 police officers.
So you're not intimidating people enough. Is that what you're saying?
We can talk after the meeting. So then this next slide here, thanks to Max, provided me some information about just developments that are coming. They're either under construction, or the plans have been approved, or they're waiting for plan approval. But as you can see, there's 448 single-family detached, 471 attached homes, 945 multifamily homes. So that's all a total culmination of what's being developed currently, what's been approved, and what's coming down the pipe. So this isn't even looking at commercial development. As sewer capacity gets resolved, we could potentially see a big spike in residential development. So with that, there's 3 models we looked at for staffing. One was the per capita staffing model, a workload analysis, and the shift relief factors. And I'm just going to cover all 3 relatively quickly. Per capita is just what it says. It's a ratio. It says if you have X number of population, you need X number of officers. The three big agencies that give you those percentages, the FBI, the DOJ, North Carolina Department of Public Safety. FBI says a community needs 2.3 officers per 1,000. DOJ says 2.5. North Carolina Department of Public Safety says 2.9. So if you look at that and take our population of about 16,700 people, we need to increase the department anywhere from 13 to 17 officers. Now, the pros of a per capita staffing is it's really easy. I mean, you just got to crunch some numbers. The cons, and I'm just going to read the quote from the ICMA. It says, "Totally inappropriate basis for staffing decisions." It doesn't take into effect call volume. It doesn't take into effect police style. Here in Stallings, we have a huge focus on community engagement and getting out there and being part of our community. So the next one, the workload analysis. This one has a lot of formulas to it, so just real quick, I won't go through a lot. It takes the actual call volume that the Stallings Police Department has responded to, and it works into the formula. And really, when I went through it, one of it said, and we weight those calls, I should say, so weighted by severity and the amount of time it takes for an officer to handle that call. Officers spend about 38% of their time responding to calls for service. And the IEA, International Association of Chiefs of Police, recommendation is 25% of their time should be spent responding to calls, and the rest should be problem solving, proactive work, and just administrative community engagement. So using that model, that model says that we need 5 officers per shift, 5 critical positions, so 5 police officers per shift. Doesn't include sergeants or lieutenants. So then you have to take in relief factors, figure out, or they call it the availability factor. So they have an availability factor of, it takes 2.34 officers to equal 1 post. So when you do the math with that, it says that we need to have 24 officers on our patrol squad. We currently have 12, so that would be an addition of 12 officers to our patrol only. So pros with that, agency specific, it uses our call volume. The cons, workload analysis is extremely complicated to comprehend and work through. And it's very costly to have a professional do that work. So what I did in probably a week, a statistician does in about 6 months. So, and for those that were on the council at the time, I had asked for a staffing study in the budget, and we ended up cutting it out, but it was about, I think, $45,000 or $50,000 to have someone come in and do a staffing analysis. So really not cost practical either. The last model, which is the one that kind of fits my professional beliefs, is the shift relief factors. So what this model says is how many officers does it take to fill 1 critical post? And that critical post is 1 police officer position. This one takes in how many days an officer works, how many days an officer's off, how much vacation time they accrue, how much sick time they have, holiday time, court time, training time. So when you factor all those pieces in, their model says it takes 2.56 officers to fill 1 critical post. So when you do that math, you have to round up. Obviously, you can't hire 30 3/4 police officers, so you round up to 31, which would say we need to add 6 officers to the police department, which, like I said at the beginning, kind of my experience, and I will call it my proverbial gut, said that we need to add 5 to the police department when asked at the retreat. So really falls in line with kind of what I professionally thought. The math shows that similar number. The pros to this, very simple to calculate and interpret. The cons to using this type of staffing model, as the department gets older or more mature, they accrue more time off, they have more sick time, so that could skew what the relief factor looks like. So of all 3 of these, there's pros and cons to how they all work and how they all fit. But this one kind of fits in with what Chief Plyler had talked about to me in 2019, what I talked about with you all at the retreat last February. So with that, not asking for anything tonight. Obviously, we just sat through that 5-year projection, and money's tight, and you got to figure out how you're going to do all the things that the town needs to do to keep moving forward. But just some potential solutions. I would say that 6 is a lot of police officers. You see that final number with equipment and salary and benefits to bring 6 on, $562,000. That is a lot of money. The manager and I have talked a number of times, like, if we're gonna attempt to move forward with this, how do we do it? Is it, 1 officer a year for 6 years, 2, 2, and 2, 3, 3, and 3? A lot of different variations. One of the positive things is we've done such a good job of managing our fleet of vehicles that, at least this year, we wouldn't have to purchase any additional vehicles. We'd have some that we think we could recycle for at least a couple more years. But really, we're, again, not asking for any answers tonight. I just wanted to come and present this to you, answer any questions you might have, and see where we go from there. So, any questions?
As you think about the growth of the town, I'm gonna go back to the per capita, developments coming online. Is there any correlation in your, gut feeling model, whatever that was called, what was it called again?
The shift relief factors.
Shift relief.
Yeah.
Is there any correlation between that and population growth?
No, that is really, so right now, at full staff, you have a sergeant and 3 patrolmen per shift. Sergeant's job, they take calls, right? They'll take calls if they need to, but their job is to supervise those 3 officers. If we grow, their span of control grows. And then we're getting into where they're kind of maxing their span of control. So that shift relief factor model really looks at, to keep those 3 officers, to always have 3 officers on a shift working, plus their supervisor, you need those other 6. So it's not factoring in, it's a snapshot of today's time.
But if the town grows numerically, would you add a 4th officer to the shift with a supervisor? How do you know that?
It's really, it kind of goes back to, hey, we're watching these things. Perfect example, we need to send, we don't have a high call volume. We're running maybe 13,000 calls a year. So that's not giving the officers the same experience level that, let's say, is going on in Monroe or in Charlotte, for not even a good comparison. So we have a high level of training expectation to help keep their skills sharp. So we have a lot of officers are gone. They might go to a 2-week class. So having that other number, but as we grow and we know those are happening, we need to have, I'm not really answering your question.
Yeah,
So
it is odd, because you say it's a low volume.
I think what he's saying is that he wants to get some criminals moved into the area? No.
we value our low crime rate here. So, I mean, and that's, we preach that. It's a hard, this definitely is not a hard science. So, as you can see, there's pros and cons to all 3 of those models. It's one of those that, I think a lot of people know, after so many years of doing the same thing over, you can kind of say, oh, I see that, and my gut says that's a good move. And when you start doing some math and you see that it kind of fits with what your experience is telling you, then it gives it some validity. 17 and 18 additional officers, we don't need 17 or 18 additional officers. I would never come ask you for that. 12, we don't need. Those numbers just are impractical, so. Any other questions?
Looks like you covered it for us tonight.
All right.
Appreciate
it. Thank you.
Appreciate the information. Thank you.
I guess, sir, if I could ask one more question?
Of Chief?
Yes. I mean, so what you put into your staff budget for this year, is it gonna include these next steps?
Actually, the manager and I have not gotten that far yet.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
we are still working on that.
I think the approach, because, Chief will, want to talk about adding those first 2 positions, right? There'll be a number of other departments that will want to, ask for new things. So we'll probably look at it. We'll have each department do like a, hey, keep the status quo, and then we'll try to itemize the new additional. That we know what it would be like to keep the status quo, and we know what it would be like to consider each of these requests and make adding them or not adding them.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just curious.
Sound fair to you?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Next up, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Good meeting tonight.